Especially after
I still don't like those banners on the top and bottom.
well, that usually isn't good if I have to use like you guys down in the corner, stuff like that. But like,
Yeah, I would remove the bottom banner because that's causing more issues than it is doing. It's not really doing anything. Top banner, okay, but bottom banner, no.
hold on a minute, let me see here, make sure. Okay, Tech Talk kicked in.
It's way off.
Um, I can test the audio, see what it sounds like. Okay, so it sounds good on Twitch. Sounds good on Kick. I do not. I forgot to change to my channel on D Live, so let's see what it sounds like on D Live. Sounds good on D Live. Hit refresh on YouTube. This is the one that's important because I forgot to switch the YouTube thing on the thing to make sure it's going. So
Oh.
there it is. It's working. I used the schematics for ARPANET as the thumb or
Okay.
the thumbnail on here too, which I thought that was pretty cool. Okay.
Yeah, which version? Because there was two versions, wasn't it? There was the mine, or
Yep.
was technically was John's 1974 and your 1976,
Yep.
7.
Yep. It sounds good on both YouTube and on Rumble. So, but yeah, it was both. I think the one I used was the older looking one because
Okay.
I don't like the ones that look white because they kind of look synthetic. You know what I mean? So I used one that has the paper
Okay.
that looks like it's old. So,
1974 isn't that old.
well, I mean, for these,
I mean, it's within your lifetime. Mind you,
it's
it's 2 years. Yeah, I'm 2 years too young, but
for these for these young bucks though. It's way back. It's
okay.
ancient history. Like I look at 1990s TV shows, and I really don't see much of a difference with today when it comes to like graphics and stuff. There is a little bit, but
Are you saying that both of us are ancient history now?
not according to me, but according to those young 20, 30-year olds. Yeah, we're just over the.
When I was young, yeah.
Yep. So I'm gonna do my countdown, and we'll get this started and get it
Mm,
over with. Everything sounds good.
yeah.
So 3, 2, 1. Now, hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Tech Talk. I'm Roger Hanson here with Mark Edworthy, and today we are going to be doing a recap, a review of everything that we've gone over from the beginning of this season. Maybe not everything. We're not gonna, because the last one, I think that one chased Tan away. He went incognito. He went AWOL. He said, I'm not putting up with that nerdy shit no more." And I think it really surprised him because it was me who did it. Because I think he was expecting you to do it, but
Notice he isn't there now.
yeah, he's like, that's enough of that crap. So I'm out of here. Now his head did drop down to the bottom on our live with Roger Hanson chat in Elements. So he probably heard what I just said and decided he might come in. It all depends. He might be getting drunk too because like they got a new pope, and you know how those Catholics are.
And on. It's still technically end of his day shift. No,
I know, I'm just joking.
yeah.
He's probably on his way
Well,
home.
yeah. End of work and then just run out to the local pub.
Run down and get himself a big bottle of something. You know what I mean? So, yeah, today we're going to do a basic review of some of the stuff. I'm not going to go through a lot of the stuff. I wanted to start out where Tan actually started on the first episode with AGI and kind of go into some of the stuff that we had gone through with like DeepMind. DeepMind, especially, was something that really stuck out to me more than anything else. That and the bomb Welsh algorithm. So I just kind of wanted to go through some of it. Now, the one thing that really stuck to my mind was the part where it said humans can adapt to unexpected situations.
Mhm.
And that's by relying on prior experience. Now, AGI, according to what they're saying, would need to like demonstrate a similar ability, and that's by reasoning through new problems without needing additional training. You know what I mean?
I'm not so sure if humans can solely adapt um, based upon previous experience. I mean, we are quite a malleable species. I mean, how many times have you been in a situation that you have not been in before?
Yeah,
And you've had to adapt to that.
had to adapt to situations, circumstances that you've never had any experience in. Yeah, you just had to. Basically, they call it flying by the seat of your
Yeah,
pants.
yeah.
That is a good issue. Like, or a good. It's good that you brought that up because I don't see any kind of quote unquote, as you like to, just to make you happy, I'll say that, artificial intelligence being able to do that. I don't see that. You know what I mean? To be honest, I now one thing that did stick out to me though when it comes to that is DeepMind. Now they 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 started doing a lot of pioneering uh, in reinforcement learning. Now we did talk about that before.
What is more colloquially known as nudge um, learning, nudge. Um, yeah, that psychological sort of nudge concept.
And if you would remember too, me and you had plenty of conversations about this back when we were doing my gaming podcast too. I don't know if you remember a lot of that, but like when it comes at the time, I wasn't really referring to it as reinforcement learning, because it was a lot. It was something that was introduced to me different. They didn't actually use the term reinforcement learning, but back when we were talking about gaming and stuff, it was supposed to be like a type of machine learning where like agents learn to make decisions by interacting. You know what I mean with an environment, and
Mhm.
then they receive feedback in the form of rewards and penalties. So
Carrot and stick theory. Um, Not too dissimilar to how certain agencies acted during the so-called pandemic. Let's
Mhm.
just say, yeah.
Well, well, think about it. Like, I don't know how much you do remember when we were talking about the games, but like when we were talking about the cloud gaming, I was telling you, but like they had these games where um, you would go in and you would like have to fight enemies, NPCs, non-player characters, and when you did that, if you died, what happens is the computer or the game would actually mark that character as like a revenge uh, target. You know what I mean? So after you die, that character would actually could actually get stronger, but it's also marked as a revenge, so that if you fight them again, what happens is if you win, you get a reward for it. And if you lost, freaking, there's a penalty. The character would again get stronger, and then you would have, you know what I'm saying? Each time you fought him, he would get stronger. If you lost, and if you won, you would actually get a reward for it.
No, I've seen certain games where if you multiplayer games, if you lose a fight, you lose your items, the items that you're carrying, dropped on the floor. Either you get there quickly enough to to collect them, or another player could collect them.
Right. But when it comes to like the AI part of it, I don't think like the rewards would be a part of it. You know what I mean? It may, and I'm not sure about this. I could check it out later, but like it may be like freaking calculating your moves and anticipating what you're going to do for the next fight.
Again, I've not seen any games that are that sophisticated yet. Yet.
Now, also another thing that really stuck to me from Deep Minds is when we were talking about Mu Zero. You remember that?
Remind me. It
Okay.
rings a bell, but yeah, remind me.
Now, what happened was is Deep Mind introduced Mu Zero, and that takes reinforcement learning a step further by learning to plan and make decisions in different environments, and that's without or with unknown rules. Like if they're put into a situation and there's no rules, you know what I mean? Um, where they don't have rules that they have to go by. You know what I mean? They have to actually make decisions.
Give us an example.
Well, like if you ask them a question and they don't understand it, then they have to find out how to make a decision basically um, by acting or interacting with the environment around it. So, like say you're in a video game or something, or you're in a virtual reality world and you have an AI in there and it has absolutely no ideas about what to what to do or how to calculate or anything. You know what I'm saying? It's literally got to come up with its own way of making a decision by interacting with the things around it. So, you remember the one thing that really sticks out to me, you remember when I think it was the first season, maybe, or was it the second season where Tan did that video where he had two phones. The guy had two phones, and he made it to where one phone couldn't see.
It was mid second season. Yeah, I remember the one.
Maybe that might have something to do with it, where like because the phone that he was talking to, he pointed it away to where he couldn't see him, and then he had that girl come back behind him and put up the rabbit ears behind his head, then walk off the screen, and they put the phone in view. And because that other phone was sitting there and it saw it, freaking, he turned around and the computer actually connected up to the other phone and found out what had happened while he wasn't able to see. So maybe I don't know that's kind of something that might be.
I'm still skeptical about that entire video, actually, for a number of different reasons. But yeah, um, I'm not sure how realistic that was. That's to say.
Well, I mean, if it was realistic, then that would be in line with what they're wanting to do with AGI. Because I've noticed, like in the language, when they talk about that AGI, it's AGI would be able to, or AGI would have to do this. You know what I mean? Like it's not happened yet. You know what I mean? You see that in a lot of the language. In my personal opinion, I don't think that like they've really been able to grasp the technology that they want to do with AGI. To be honest, from everything that I've seen so far with it, I don't know what your take is on
Okay,
that.
I think your artificial general intelligence concepts are still relatively, I don't know, to say euphemism.
Right. Well, I mean, it is true because like what you're saying is really true because it says like AGI would need to demonstrate. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. Uh,
Mm,
your 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 audio's breaking in and out. What did you
okay.
just What did you just say?
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, I'm just. Um, I didn't really say anything. I just said I consider that the entire concept of artificial general intelligence, or the actual, not concept, but the actual you progress of the actual implementation of AGI is more pie in the sky.
Kind of like wishful wishful
Yeah,
thinking
wishful
is.
thing. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's pretty much what I get from it, except for, I mean, I see them making starts to it, like we were talking the other day when it comes to smart cities. And I also mentioned that there's a difference between 5G and smart cities and pointed out some of the things they had involved with 5G, like with street lights and street lamps and things of that nature, and monitoring
which
congestion on.
which I still argue against, because don't think that technology is sort of really overly relevant anyway in those applications.
Well, I mean, what I'm saying is even though it's 5G, I could see eventually that's where they're working toward. They're wanting to try to make this kind of smart city where they use that technology on those things, and then like water meters and electric meters and stuff for the house. And like you were alluding to before, I pointed that out, like even in the sewer plants and stuff like that too. Um, where
Yeah, but one of the biggest, especially in within the last couple of months, especially in the UK, have been demonstrated. It's okay to come up with these ideas, but who's going to pay for the infrastructure? Where's all this infrastructure?
Yeah, where's it all going to come from? That is a big thing, and
Yeah,
there.
are consumers going to be willing to accept this, and not only willing, but to accept, but are willing to pay for?
Mhm. So after that, what I wanted to get into, because that was basically about humans being able to adapt to unexpected situations, like we had talked about. You know what I mean? But what else I wanted to go into was something that we brought up with AGI, where AGI would be able to learn concepts in one area and apply them to another, even if it has never encountered the new domain before. That would probably be more of where that phone conversation came from. You know what I mean? Actually,
In
so
in theory, yeah.
you know.
Again,
Now,
we are talking about more theoretical sort of things rather than
yeah, because like it says here, it says AGI would be
uh,
able to, so that's
yeah, and that is my sort of issue. The word will,
or would.
not maybe is able to, not possibly be able to, not probably be able to, but will be able to. People are making assumptions because the weather will be sunny tomorrow. But if I walk out there tomorrow and find that it's raining,
Now, this right here goes back to AlphaGo. Um, that now, what stuck out to me whenever we were into this conversation was AlphaGo, um, and their success was with their success. It was in the use of deep reinforcement learning. You remember us talking about deep
yeah,
reinforcement learning.
yeah,
So basically, AlphaGo learned to play the game of Go by playing against itself using a combination of neural networks and as well as Monte Carlo tree. That's basically NCTS. Um, and it did that. It searched MCTS to explore potential moves and outcomes.
which is a database much like Stockfish is a database for chess,
Right.
as an example. Yeah,
So
I'll go
all of that was basically freaking you know making decisions on environments. You know what I mean? But I think that it was able to do it in an environment it had never encountered before. It just searched out the information and then it pulled in what it needed to from other sources, basically. You know what I mean?
well, it's a single source. The NGSC is just a single source, isn't it?
Well, I mean, uh, now hold up. Now, AlphaGo is a completely different uh, program than freaking Monte Carlo tree, isn't it? So it
Uh, it's a different algorithm. I won't call it a program per se. Um, Algorithm, APIs, yeah, algorithm. I think it's more.
it basically had to explore potential moves and outcomes from that program now, um,
Algorithm.
or algorithm. Yeah. So my whole question is was it a part of AlphaGo or did it have to go outside of itself to find that information? You know.
I've anybody who's ever played computer-based chess or has actually ever taken any interest in computer-based chess will recognize things, terminologies such as X-boards. Xboard is a very generic sort of graphical user interface for it will display the chessboard, it will display the chess pieces, but it still is reliant on a external database, so or a database. So in most users would recognize Stockfish.
Mhm.
So this is very similar. AlphaGo is just what? Just the graphical user interface, would
Yeah.
you say?
You're,
It's the database
yeah. So
in terms of algorithm.
another thing too is DeepMind also explores transfer learning, which involves applying knowledge gained from one task to another related task. You know what I mean? So basically, it takes and it applies knowledge that it gained from one task that it did to another one,
So, as a very simple example, if I know how to make a cup of coffee,
You're breaking up. Hold on a minute. You're gonna have to,
is understands how to make a cup of coffee.
right,
It can transfer that knowledge into how to make a cup of tea.
right, yeah. So basically, if it learns how to make a cup of coffee, then later on it could also apply that knowledge to make a cup of tea.
Mm.
But what? Well, like here in the United States, we have tea bags. I don't know how you guys do. I know you guys do.
Actually, my mum used to use actual tea, loose tea,
Uh, you're you're freezing. Give it a second.
loose teapots in decades. To be
Yeah,
fair,
yeah.
so yeah,
You're
tea bags. Yeah,
yeah. That would probably be something that would be an issue right there because like in England, I'm pretty sure you guys take more effort into making tea and coffee than what we do here. You know what I mean? So
depends on the individual, I suppose. Tea bags are very common, extremely common. Like I said, teapots these days, teapots and tea streamers are extremely rare.
so you guys use tea bags too?
Yeah, yeah.
That's cool.
We
Yeah.
are
Now,
in the 21st century.
well, I wanted to double check. You know, you always talk to me about bread all the time. I was like, freaking, I didn't know for sure if you guys actually still brewed your tea or because you know it's like England tea time. That's kind of traditional, you know. So I didn't know. You learn something every day. Now we come with to the generative models. Now, deep deep minds also works with generative models, which are algorithms that can create new data based on existing patterns. Um, from what we were talking about with my boring, long show last week, generative models are basically like Chat GPT, right? Pretty much.
Um, Generative artificial intelligence can be replicated by neural natural language processing. Could also be considered as these media creation frameworks, the image creation and music
Right.
creation frameworks.
For example, generative models can be used for like creating realistic images, sounds, or even videos.
Mm.
Um, now, this is closely related to AI techniques like generative adversarial networks, which are called GANs, and other methods for synthesizing data. So now that with DeepMind is what I got from the whole thing about AGI would have to be able to learn concepts in one area and apply them to another. There were a ton more, but I didn't want to make this exhaustingly long. You know what I mean? Um, but I want to go back to that part where it says AGI would be able to learn concepts in one area and apply them to another, even if it has never encountered the new domain before. So, with everything that we've just talked about, do you think that that could be relatively possible from what we've just been talking about, like with the AlphaGo and the chess? Do you think it would be?
Anything's possible given enough.
Well, I mean, just
Yeah,
for
anything is possible. Let's just say anything is possible given enough time and enough resources.
well, from
well, that the sort of AGI revolution within, let's say, the next decade. I'm skeptical. I'm really skeptical.
Now, that part though, would you would you think that that would be closer to being able to achieve than humans being able to do like humans can, where they can adapt to unexpected situations? The first one that we were talking about, I could see me personally, I could see that being more realistic than the uh, first topic that I brought up. To be honest with you, it seems something more along the lines of what a computer would be possibly able to do. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm, I don't know. We're talking about the entire human condition here, aren't we? We're talking about a very sort of deep philosophical concept here.
Because this part isn't necessarily freaking doing things by the seat of your pants. You know what I'm saying? It's very
Mm,
calculated and estimated, rather than the first one where basically it's going to have to think, well, by the seat of its pants. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to be, if it's going to be human like, then it's not. It's going to be have to be able to make decisions in situations that it's never encountered before.
there's two terms for people that only do things, or there's a actual term for people who will only do things just based on calculated measures only. Sociopath.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
true. Methodical sociopaths. Those are the ones that are popularly called serial killers today. So,
Psychopath. I would always think of psychopaths as well. Yeah, so
yeah.
that's why I said first of all two, but just sort of discounted psychopaths, but sociopathic, psychopathic. Yeah.
Now, I'm gonna keep the geeky shit down to a minimum. I don't want to scare you off. I know I scared Tan off, but the third thing that I wanted to bring up is this Baum Welsh algorithm. Okay, and it has to do with expectation and maximization, which is EM algorithm, um, which iteratively improves estimates of the model parameters to maximize the likelihood of the training data. Okay, now HM.
So what? So in effect, you're saying learn by its own mistakes,
Mhm. It improves
which is
estimating.
another human, another. No.
Yeah,
It is generally, let's just say generally, it's another human trait. If not not that everybody learns from the mistakes, but um, as a generalization, it's a very humanistic trait.
right. Now HMMs, which I brought up and bored the hell out of you guys last week, uh, make simplified assumptions, such as independence of observations given a state and the use of like fixed Gaussian distributions to models acoustic features. Now this has to do with like the audio. Okay. Now that brings up the part where it talks about transformer based models like GPTs, which is like general pre-trained transformers. That would be like Chat GPT, basically, but with audio. And that was one thing that really stuck out to me when I was talking about this Baum Welsh algorithms, and the reason for that is it goes back to when we were talking about dialogue flow, um, and that I believe was with Google Cloud or yeah, the Google Cloud service, and it's a natural language processing and an NLP platform that helps
So,
business.
so I think that's the something that's just struck me. You're talking about this sort of so-called AI frameworks, learning from
Hmm.
it. But I've just considered the concept of when you're a child, you go to school,
Yeah.
you get taught certain principles, and you learn from those principles.
Hmm.
Um, you aren't going to expect a 80-year-old to have a good understanding of philosophy. Maybe when they become 20, 30, 40, they may have a better, a good
Yeah.
understanding of philosophy. Same concept with this.
Yeah. Now the thing that really stuck out to me though was this dialogue flow. Okay, now it's an
Mm.
NLP platform, and it's supposed to help businesses build conversational interfaces like chat box and virtual assist. That's really
Yeah, and then how many websites have you gone to that have had those little customer service chatbots,
yeah.
and you've asked them questions and they come up with just some inane sort of answer reply?
Well, I didn't say they were good. Don't don't mistake me on that one. I know, but that's what it really sounds like to me. You know what I mean? It sounds like that's where
Mm.
uh, where this bomb Welsh algorithm and HT or HMMs are coming from, basically. And last week they were saying that it was basically outdated, and they're coming out with new technologies for it. But that's really what.
New technology or just new principles?
Well, they're talking about serious like neurological shit. Like it's some
Okay,
talking.
yeah, yeah. Maybe I'm just talking semantics there, but
Mhm.
you have to make a distinction between technologies and principles of those technologies.
Well, from what I made of it, like when we were talking about native language processing, okay, it had to do with automated speech recognition, um, and what really stuck out to me on a lot of it was this feature extraction that um, I found out about. Now, feature extraction is it is important for like audio signaling processing, especially in like applications like speech recognition, speaker identification, and acoustic uh, event detections and stuff. So, like if they want to do speech recognition or identify the person that's speaking, they freaking use this feature extraction to do it. So they'll take no, they'll freaking pull or extract the audio from one person talking, and they'll sync it up to where they identify that voice with that character. You know what I mean? Um, Now that right there makes me think of cloud visualization API. I don't know if you've ever heard of that or not. I think we've discussed it, but I'm pretty sure that
More,
now it's a
yeah,
tool
you're
that
gonna have to look on.
analyzes and understands images. It can be used for like facial recognition, object detection, and image categorization, based stuff like that. You know what I mean? So basically, what they're doing is they're using the same kind of technology, in my opinion, which would be, from my take, it would have something to do with this feature extraction thing. You know what I mean? Where it,
I'm not liking this. Um, there is a lot more nuance in the way somebody speaks. There are very you can have somebody
Hold up. You're
and there is a slight different nuance. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, there was a slight different nuance between somebody being annoyed, slightly annoyed, and talking in the usual mannerisms,
well,
usual manner. So there's a lot. I think there's a lot more nuance in speech than there is in speech recognition than there is in object recognition.
I'm not too familiar with all this stuff, but that's kind of what I'm starting to see where they're actually starting to these AIs are actually starting to recognize different moods that you're in and things of that nature. Like they're actually wanting to learn the nuances. You know what I mean? How you talk when you're angry, how you talk when you're sad, how you talk when you're happy. You know, different types of language that you're actually doing. It's
But then the
hold up, you're
your emotional instability. Yeah. Uh, this raises the entire question of these frameworks being ever present, omnipresent.
right. Well, I know the cloud also, besides having that vision API, they've also got cloud translation API. And that's supposed to be a service that provides real time language translation capabilities
Hmm.
for like websites and documents, and even, you know, so
I
it's
mean, that principle is a lot more simple to get your head around, rather than looking at sort of emotional nuances. But again, um, there are different dialects. There are different, yeah, dialects even within a single area. I mean, as an example, I discussed this with you plenty of time. In the UK, there are a wide whenever you talked about the English or the British accent, I've always pointed out to you there is a wide amount of different dialects, and similar to the US, there are different dialects. As an example, there are different nuances between, let's say, New Yorkers and people that live in California.
now with what we've been having conversations about. There's some keywords that I wanted to actually pull up information on, and I wanted to kind of go over it. Now, one thing that I noticed kept popping up is this neuromorphic computing. Have you ever heard of that before?
Yes. Hang on. Sorry, my screens have just gone blank for some reason. What the hell?
They're freaking out because they know we're talking about evil shit. We're talking about the
Uh,
Antichrist. Your 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 computer is freaking out. I can still see you. Can you hear?
that's better. Yes. So, for some reason, power savings switched on. Sorry, you were saying.
Now, have you ever heard of that term before?
Um,
Neuromorphic computing.
I've heard of neuromorphism in more um, human sort of brains. In human, what's the concept I'm looking at? Human brain structure. It means malleable
Okay.
changes. So neurons changing, depending on environment. Um, yeah,
So
malleable sort of, yeah,
so now
thing.
this is the part where
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
the part where your head is probably gonna explode, like I freaking said to you in the chat earlier before we started the show. Okay, so just be aware this is probably where your head is gonna explode. You're either gonna get really really pissed or you're freaking like your head's gonna explode from it.
Maybe.
Okay.
We'll
Now,
see.
I know you've been around computers long enough to know what von Neumann computing is, right?
The concept rings a bell, but right off the top of my head, I can't think.
It's also known as the von Neumann architecture. It's the foundational design model for most of the digital computers used today. Now, it was first proposed in the mid 1940s by mathematicians and physicists. The one that's known was John von Neumann. Okay,
Mm.
and it laid out the blueprints for building general purpose computers capable of storing and executing wide varieties of instructions, basically. Now, this model remains.
Okay. Computer architecture where both data and instruction sets are stored in the same memory space and
Right.
accessed through a single bus or a single pathway.
Mhm. Now,
Mm.
this model actually remains at the heart of most modern computing systems. Uh, and that's for everything from personal computers to smartphones to servers and even supercomputers. So the the key principle of von Neumann's architecture is the idea of storing both data and program instructions in the same memory space. Okay. Now, in earlier mechanical and early electronic computer systems, instructions were hardwired manually input, basic, or it was either hardwired or manually input. Okay, but von Neumann proposed a more flexible approach in which programs could be written, modified, and executed from memory, just like data. So this idea enabled software-based computing and helped lead to the development of modern program languages, operating systems, and computer applications. Now, you got any thoughts on that?
Mm. Yeah, I understand the principle. Let's
Okay.
just say that.
Now, with all of that being said, I'm gonna get into the part that's gonna cause your head to explode because this is this is where we start talking about the crazy stuff. Now, neuromorphic computing is a cutting edge field in computer science and engineering that aims to design hardware systems modeled after the structure and function of the human brain. Rather than relying on the traditional architecture of von Neumann computing, where memory and processing units are separate and data moves back and forth, neuromorphic systems attempt to replicate the brain's highly parallel and even driven networks of neurons and synapses. Now, this approach seeks to dramatically improve the efficiency, speed, and adaptability of machines when handling complex cognitive tasks such as perception, pattern recognition, and decision making. The core concept behind neuromorphic computing is to build artificial neurons and synapses that emulate how biological neuron processes and uh, how biologic how biological neurons process and transmit information. Now, in the human brain, neurons fire only when a certain threshold of electrical input is reached, and the strength of connection between neurons, which is synapses, changes dramatically based on experience. This is in stark contrast to conventional processors, which execute instructions in a rigid, sequential manner. Uh, Now, neuromorphic chips are designed to stimulate this spiking behavior, often using what is called spiking neural networks, which is SNNs, where data is represented not by continuous values, but by discrete spikes of activity, similar to how biological brains operate. Is that catching your attention there at all? I notice you're kind of squinching.
Reminds me of that. It reminds me of was it Nancy in Vixen's boat? Yeah, it was that was talking about a device, computing device that's only being brought to market, and that is related to sort of um, brain tissue
Hmm.
being used as a sort of processing unit.
Yep. Now, one of the primary advantages in neuromorphic systems is efficiency, which me and you have been talking about. We've actually started talking about flops and stuff of that nature,
Mm.
and the amount of energy that's going to have to be used when it comes to actually duplicating or simulating the human brain, And later on, I really do think me and you should talk about this whole thing we were discussing with simulating rather than using CPUs because you brought up those not CP MCUs or something like that.
NPUs,
Yeah,
um, AI processing unit,
because that right there is real.
neural processing units. Yeah,
I think that's going to be an interesting conversation right there because like I was looking up how like a lot of the um, commercial stuff is when it comes to freaking like them doing the cloud, which is another topic you hate, but like
well, I don't like the. It's not that I don't like the overarching topic. Again, it's just much like things like artificial intelligence and several other things. Um, these
I think you
mark to in such a way that it makes these terminologies sort of meaningless.
yeah. Well, I mean,
But it still sells the products for the uninitiated sort of consumer.
I think it's a little bit deeper than that because like there is a difference between simulation and what you're talking about with those chips or those MPUs. Because freaking
Mm.
like they're simulating. We both know what simulations are. I mean, like you talk about virtual boxes with Linux all the time, so
Mm.
we
Yeah.
we both understand the concept. There's a difference between a simulation and what you're talking about with those freaking what are they MPUs is what you said instead of
Yeah, neural processing units,
yeah
or
that
what
that's
some people would call AI processing units, but yeah, neural processing units.
that would be the real deal. So I mean for me personally I believe that would most likely be because of energy efficiency, the differences, you know and I'm wondering how much energy is being pulled with those neural processors and stuff like that when it comes to that. So that's one thing that I really think we do need to at one point to talk about. I know that kind of gets techie, but I mean, being honest, I'm into that stuff more than I am into.
Again, actually, I can make an argument for why these things are not necessarily energy efficient, but yeah, that goes into a wide sort of argument, anyway.
I mean, if you want to, well,
I think we'll leave this to just a stream that is specifically looking at this. Else we could be here all day just talking about this one subject.
yeah. Now, the one thing that I do want to bring, actually, let me go ahead and continue with this. That way, we can kind of get to where I'm going with it. Now, one of the primary advantages to neuromorphic systems is energy efficiency, like I said, and that's because neurons in such systems only activate when necessary and become information and because information can be processed in memory without moving it back and forth, these chips use far less energy than traditional CPUs or even GPUs used in machine learning.
Again, well, yeah, GPUs, but when you say CPUs, and this goes back to my argument, which I don't really want to talk about at this present moment, but when you're talking about CPUs, you're talking about, generally speaking, x86 architecture.
Right. And I believe right here, this is where we're talking about NPUs that you're referring to right here. Um,
Yeah.
because you know what I mean? Because they're talking about the neural neural networks and stuff like this. Now these makes neuromorphic hardware ideal for applications where power constraints are critical, such as mobile devices, embedded sensors, autonomous robots, and of Things. Which Internet of Things is what I know a lot of people have a really issue with. Um, I know a lot of people that really don't like that whole Internet of Things. Um, so
Yet people go out and buy those so-called cloud-based doorbells and those Series and Alexas and whatever devices, and buy cloud-assisted televisions and media systems. Yeah, yeah. That's yeah. Again, my some of my criticism for these so-called the Internet of Thing concept.
now, according to what they're saying, though, neuromorphic computing is also supposed to like enable real time learning and adaptability. Okay, now instead of like being trained once and then deployed like conventional deep learning models, neuromorphic systems can adapt continuously to new data and new environments. Now, this opens the door to more biologically plausible forms of artificial intelligence that don't just classify information but can learn in a fluid, context sensitive way.
If we're talking about biological devices, are we straying away from artificial intelligence to actual intelligence?
It just says this opens the door to more.
Because I was
It sounds
considering,
pretty scary.
I was considering this concept when Nancy was showing us that what was the CP1 device the other day or last week, and And I was thinking concepts or more ethical sort of lines and more. Um,
Well, I mean,
I was philosophizing, let's just say, and I was considering the sort of where does artificial intelligence and actual intelligence begin?
well, biological too. I mean
Yeah,
that.
that's what I mean. If it's a biological, then is that not a form of actual intelligence?
Well, I mean,
Um,
let's take this a little step further. Okay, let's stop worrying about artificial intelligence. What if they start putting this tech inside of our brains and stuff? They're talking biological, man. They can put it in our brains, in our arm. People who freaking lost movements in their arm or their muscle, they could just implant something in there that would take care of the whole problem.
in theory, well, we've been putting technology into our bodies for decades now. Pacemakers are being the most obvious example.
Exactly. And from what I've been reading, they've been doing this with this kind of stuff with the
But pacemakers are not a form of intelligence.
I mean recently they've actually started implementing this kind of technology into the newer pacemakers.
I would have to do some research. I'm going to remain until I see the actual data. I'm going to remain skeptical on the limitations and the application.
It's interesting because like I see a lot of these commercials where they have these bracelets that you put on or and now like even with diabetics they've got this thing where they can put it in your skin and all you have to do is take a phone and tap it to it and it will
Yeah,
literally it'll give all your information when it comes to your
yeah,
blood.
but that's not an intelligence. That's just a method of monitoring glucose levels in as an example in this situation. I mean, this what we're in now can monitor my sleep patterns. It can monitor my heart rate and so forth. But that's just monitoring data points. That's not an intelligence.
Are you sure?
Um,
Have you checked it out? Make sure. I mean, I'm kind of
define intelligence.
I'm kind of no. I mean that watch right there. We don't need to define nothing. I'm asking you first. This is have you
Yeah,
done
yeah.
the research to find out if there's any kind of AI in that watch?
No, the sensors in that is are just monitoring certain factors. There's no intelligence involved in that. It's just monitoring certain factors which I can bring up late at a later point in
I'm just really surprised with you.
numeric form and produce graphs and various
I'm
other data sort of
I'm I'm just really surprised with you
points.
that you would have a watch on your arm and not do the research behind it.
I have done the research. It's not. You make
Okay, so
an
what kind of
assumption.
technology is inside that watch?
It's various light sensors, and as an example, I'll take it off for a minute. Um, if I can even take it off,
It's
it's got what four sensors on the point back of it. The light sensors that will just monitor sort of blood circulation and yeah, blood circulation and heartbeat and so forth. Uh,
well, I mean,
those data points.
we'll see. That's good shit. You just pulled off your watch
Yeah,
and you used it as an example. Now, to me, I think you
yeah.
should I think you should dig deeper and find out. see what's actually going into that watch.
Well, there's no actual artificial, there's no intelligence in it.
I'm,
It's just
I'm still saying
no more different than
it's still good
I
content.
mean, I mean, I mean, as another example, a fire alarm, a smoke detector. It's there's no intelligence in it. It is just um, monitoring the sort of the air conditioning. It's just monitoring to see if there's any smoke in there.
Okay.
It's not an intelligence. It's just got sensors in it.
Okay, so let me go ahead and continue further with this since that did cause your brain to explode. Okay, so several research institutions and technology companies have developed neuromorphic hardware prototypes. Notable examples is IBM's True North, Intel's Loihi chip, and BrainChip's Akita processor. Now, these chips integrate thousands or even millions of artificial neurons and synapses and use architectures that closely mimic brain like computation, allowing them to handle sensory data such as audio, video, or tactile information with minimal energy and maximum responsiveness. Despite its promise, neuromorphic computing is still in its early stages, too. So, in one of the major challenges that it has is developing effective algorithms and software frameworks that can take full advantage of its architecture. Um, as traditional neuron networks and programming models are not directly compatible, which that's what we were just talking about.
Hmm.
I very, I think that's pretty much what it's going to end up being. Like neural networks and these programming models are going to collide with one another. Eventually, if they're going to want to go this route, they're going to have to give up the models. Um, like Chat GPT and all them use huge freaking models for information. You know what I mean? Eventually, if they're wanting to go this neural network path, they're going to have to give that up. It's going to have to be set up autonomous rather than having a huge database to rely.
Yeah, well, we've seen sort of networks and processing for a long time. I mean, I say it's very rudimentary example. A lot of websites, the social media platforms we use, you've got a front end, you've got a database, which is a separate item. You've got, I don't know, SMTP servers for email delivery. These are all individual parts of and they may not be stored on the same computer or the same host. They could be distributed through a wide sort of or a network. So you'll have the concept of sort of distributed network sort of um, applications have been or frameworks have been around for decades.
Yeah. Now, just so because I knew this is something that needed to be discussed. I mentioned the spiking neural networks, the SSNs, and
Mm.
I wanted to go over that too because I knew that it wouldn't be right if I didn't explain that a little bit more and kind of go through it. Spiking neural networks, they represent like a third generation of neural network models. Uh, Now they aim to be more closely mimic the behavior of biological brains. Now, unlike traditional artificial neural networks, which are ANNs, ANN, which process information in a continuous, uniform way. SNNs introduce a time dimension and discrete spikes, and those are sudden bursts of electrical activities that resembles the way real neurons communicate in the brain. Now, this biologically inspired approach allows for greater energy efficiency, like we said, more natural information processing, and potential advantages in learning and adaptability, especially when implemented in norm- neuromorphic hardware. Now, in an SNN, information is not transmitted as a steady stream of numerical values. Instead, it is conveyed through the timing of spikes. Each artificial neuron accumulates input over time, and when its internal state, called membrane potential, crosses a certain threshold, it fires a spike to downstream neurons. After firing, the neurons reset and may enter a refractory period during which it is less likely to spike again, similar to how biological neurons behave. So basically, it's mimicking the biological neurons that are taking place within the human brain, which I find that pretty interesting. So
Well,
there, yeah,
simulating, yeah,
that's the
give them
best.
more, yeah.
That's a better way of saying it. Now, this stuff is pretty freaking intense. You know what I mean? When you look at it, you might not be able to call it freaking intelligence, okay? But the process that they're getting into is really, really insane. Like they're trying to simulate the human brain, basically.
Yeah, on that point specifically, I heard you use the term natural, and that word sort of
Sits
doesn't
uneasy.
sit well with me in this context.
Wait till you hear the next part. Okay. Now, the spike based communication introduces a form of temporal coding. What do you think about that? Temporal coding.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to be more. You're gonna
Rather,
have to elaborate.
rather than representing data purely through amplitude or activation strength, SNNs can encode information in the exact timing or frequency of spikes. This makes them particularly suited for dynamic real-time data, such as sensory inputs, audio signals, or motion detection, where timing of events carries significant meaning. SNNs have several distinct advantages over traditional neural networks. First, because neurons in an SNN only fire when necessary. When input cross when their inputs cross a threshold, they are inherently energy efficient. The sparsity of activity is one of the reasons why biological brains operate so efficiently, consuming far less energy than modern computers while performing complex tasks. Second, SNNs support local learning rules such as spike timing dependent plasticity (STDP), which adjusts the strength of communications based on the relative timing of spikes between neurons. This mimics how synaptic strengths change in the brain and offers a biological plausible path to learning without requiring backpropagation, which is commonly used in conventional ands, but is not how the brain learns. That's crazy stuff. So this takes it even a level deeper. You know what I mean? Where it's actually when when I just read that just about the STDPs. Now this is the part when it comes to biology that got has me pretty excited. I'm actually doing research on that with my stream for the Cosmic Weave, and the way the brain works has to do with plasticity. Um,
Hmm.
and I'm always bringing it up about how freaking the brain has the capacity to actually rewire itself.
Hmm.
Um, not only that, but
Well, back to our previous point that we made earlier about malleability and synaptics. Yeah.
so this is getting to where it's pretty intense. Um, this is something that I really really caught on to that was sticking out to me. Now, quantum AI too. That's something else that was mentioned in some of the stuff that I found out from the stuff we've been talking about. Now with quantum AI, that's emerged that it's the emerging fusion of quantum computing and artificial intelligence, um, combining the powerful potential of quantum mechanics with problem-solving capabilities of AI. Now, the core idea is that quantum computers, which process information using quantum bits or qubits, can perform certain computations far faster and more efficiently than classical computers. And I kind of I'm up and down on that one because even though they claim that it is also true that quantum computers aren't as well advanced as what they're giving them credit for, you know what I mean? Like they they haven't really got too many different paradigms, you know what I mean? I think they made it up to like the third or the fourth one from what I the last time.
It's, I think for the last 3, 4 years, I've been creating, um, based on another YouTube channel, video content. I've been creating Minds posts. I think every July or something. That looks at that reviews the current year's progress in quantum computing. And granted, you could argue that we were still in early stages, but in the more sort of
You kind of faded out right there, so
yeah, in the more commercial world, it's becoming more more of a big thing. But again, we're still in um, early times, and don't expect a quantum computing to appear a quantum-based computer to appear on your desktop anytime soon.
yeah.
Really.
Now, with 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 quantum computers, though, I do believe that with it, it's going to make it to where you're going to have autonomous systems. And now, if we go back into what we were just talking about, I was saying that I think that they're going to have to do that with freaking autonomy rather than having all of these huge data sets. You know what I mean? And if they go the route of quantum computing, if they can actually pull it off, I think that's the direction they're going to go with it. They're going to use quantum AI with AI with quantum computing to do it, so that it can be autonomous. Um, because I doubt very seriously they're going to be able to put something together that's that's based off of the system they've got now. I'm just really skeptic about that. That's just me though. That's my conjecture.
Mm, okay, okay. I'm just thinking of the term autonomous, and that term can be used in various different usage, such as acting in accordance to one's own duties. Um, Again, we are going into the sort of, depend on how you use that word. You could be going into the sort of concepts of sentience.
Right. You're talking about like complex combinations. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
complex
Uh,
combinations of qubit states.
no,
Uh,
I'm talking about the concept of I'm an autonomous being. I think for myself, the old Descartes argument. I think, therefore, I am
well,
concept.
the whole quantum state, though.
Okay.
When when we're talking about
Again, depends on what you mean by autonomous,
right.
because
Well,
that there are several different meanings to that.
well, I mean, when it comes to states too, you go so like a state, quantum state is when people are talking about paradigms. You know what I mean? Things of that nature. It's conditions or configurations that a system uh, can be in at a given time. They actually shift from one to the next. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm,
you have these the so that's what I'm talking about when it comes to quantum mechanics and the term states. Um, you know, so especially when it comes to, when it's in the context of computing, you know what I mean, and artificial intelligence and quantum mechanics. See that when, when I use the term states, that's what I'm referring to. You
mm,
know, um, now w- with all that, I mean, I can understand like it's like these different states. It's going to help like define how like the system behaves, how it processes information, or how it transitions. Uh, you know what I mean? That's the big thing. How it transitions to other conditions. Um, it can be based on like internal or like external influences. Things of that nature. It's going to have to be able to do that. It's like how we were talking about earlier about dealing with things by the seat of your pants. You know what I'm saying? You're going to
mm.
need this kind of stuff when it comes to that. You're gonna have to that stuff is going to definitely be important. And I know I think it was back when we were first doing deep learning last year, wasn't it? Where we were talking about paradigms and shifting from one paradigm to another one so that it could make decisions. So that
I think we were talking about that potentially, possibly 2, 3 episodes ago, maybe.
well, that's probably whenever I was born. You guys with my audio stuff, you started picking on me horribly and saying that I was a nerd and calling me horrible names. And then, like after the show was even worse because then you guys really started cracking on me and telling me that I peed my pants and stuff, and that I need to take the frickin' like the pocket protector out of my pocket and shit.
I did not say anything. I
It was horrible. I felt so freaking humiliated. I did.
maybe Tan, maybe Mr. Robot talked about this, but I didn't say anything.
I
But
think I think it was ten. I think.
I think you were talking about
Hold on. He's
focusing too much on a single specific.
now. Do you know what uh, unitary transformations are?
Carry on.
Do you know what they are? No.
um,
Okay.
I can give a guess, but continue.
Okay. Okay. Now, the the state of a quantum system evolves according to certain mathematical operations called unitary transformations. And when measured, the system collapses into one of the possible uh, definite outcomes. You see, so um, this is the unitary transformation that's taken place. It literally collapses into one of those possible uh, definite outcomes, which is something that I find pretty interesting. You know what I mean? Like that just completely blows my mind when I think about that stuff. I do need to dive deeper into that, but that is something that, like the other day, you know how I was telling you about how freaking it detects like waves that are invisible or hidden, and then
Yeah.
and then like the first time I got really curious about this stuff was with what we were just talking about was the paradigms, which we were just talking about. But now they freaking start talking about crazy shit like that, dude. You know what I mean?
Are we not in danger of going into a sort of form of philosophy here?
I'm starting to believe that's exactly what it is. To be honest with, I think a lot of this gets philosophical.
Hmm.
I really do. I mean, the if you know what you're reading and the things that you're hearing right here, freaking, you understand that we are actually like going into an entire freaking form of philosophy.
I think I mean, if we aren't careful, I think we're going to start talking about people like Nietzsche.
Oh yeah, it's getting psychological and dissecting the brain and figuring out what's going on. You know, I mean that's all of this stuff. So I
So,
find
the next episode will be all about artificial intelligence and Freud and Jung.
no, this is recapping on what we've just discussed, and I hit you with some hardcore stuff that I found out from a lot of the stuff we have been discussing. It gets really really deep, and if Tan ain't, I think I kind of blew him out of the water when it comes to this AI stuff. I don't think he wants anything to do with it anymore. But if you guys don't want to talk about AI anymore, I'm cool with it, and we can actually get back to talking about other technical things. You know,
Well,
so
I was going to make this argument with Mr. Roberts earlier when he was talking about subjects for today. I think we didn't want to just stick on one subject throughout the entire season. Um, I mean, we're in danger of going down too much of a narrow scope. It's okay for this episode, obviously, but yeah, I mean, this is what the third, fourth
no, this
episode
is
in.
this is the sixth episode, and we've
No, I
had
mean the third, fourth, full episode in this season that we've just been talking about. In effect, one subject.
yeah. Well, if we did two of them. One was on freaking
Oh, yeah.
Facebook, and then the other one was on YouTube. And other than that, the rest of them's been about artificial intelligence. So
Mm. So yeah, third.
yeah,
So yeah, third episode. 3 out of 6 episodes.
so we need to move on to some better or not better because this is
Oh,
good stuff.
different.
But
Yeah.
we need to move on to a different area other than this, and hopefully we can. Unless Dan comes in and says, "Hey guys, I got this new information," and we have to do it again. But with that being said, we are coming up on an hour and a half. Before we go, you want to tell everybody how they can find you, Mark?
Okay, you can find me, the human me, and not the artificial intelligence me. You can find me on minds.com. So yeah, under the username Medworthy, Medworthy. So minds.com/Medworthy.
And just like him, you can find me on minds.com too. I'm at Roger underscore Hanson. You can also find freaking me at X as Roger Hanson at ROGLOL1973. Don't ask me about that because I will not tell you. You can also check us out on Rumble, X, Twitch, Stream, D Live, and YouTube, usually at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, uh, 10 or 11 p.m., one of the two, General Motors time over in England. And
General Muffers. Did you say General Muffers time?
Motors, GMT,
Mother,
GMT, General Motors time.
General Muffers time. Okay.
And,
General means meantime rather than General Muffers time.
and it's like I said before. If you guys want to know what time it will be in Korea or New Zealand or Australia, sorry,
There
but
are plenty of internet to web resources out there to work out your local time compared to of foreign time zone.
I've been trying my best to try to incorporate that into my brain so that I can have it down because I've got England pretty much covered and the rest of them like Eastern and all of that. But when I try to freaking figure out Australian time and Korean time, it's Greek to me.
Australian time, which time? Remember, Australia's got three
Oh
time zones.
God, don't start. I should never have even started. So with that being said, if you guys like what you saw, please like, subscribe, share, make comments. Especially make comments. Comments are very, very important to streams. Not only is it important for people who are streaming to receive comments because it helps with the algorithm, but it also, we like to talk to you. So if you make a comment on our streams, we will actually respond to you and talk to you. So with that being said, I'm going to end this stream. I hope you guys have a good day, morning, afternoon, night, whatever time it is you guys have. I hope you enjoy it. And with that, farewell.